people cross borders that politics refuse to redraw. Climate change, war, and hunger are creating a slow, relentless migration that no wall can stop and no bureaucracy can fully comprehend. Yet compassion remains trapped behind paperwork and fear. Nations debate sovereignty while families search for safety. The question is no longer who belongs where, but how we choose to define belonging itself. In the age of moving borders, humanity, not geography, must decide who we are. In this session, we're talking about borders that move, migration, morality, and the politics of compassion. For this session's speakers, I'm going to call on to stage Mr. James Angelus, founder and president of International Security Industry Council of Japan, ISIC. Karori Singh, former director and emeritus fellow of South Asian Studies Center, University of Rajasthan. Zuraida Binte Kamaruddin, former Minister of Plantation and Commodities of Malaysia. Narayan Adhikari, Southeast Asia Lead, Accountability Lab, Nepal. And finally, last but not the least, Tausif Raina is an active politician in Jammu and Kashmir, India. Raina has also served as the mayor of Baramulla town. He's the co-founder of the youth think tank in Jammu Kashmir Policy Institute and the chairman of an NGO, Global Youth Foundation, youth-led organization for peace, justice, and religious harmony. I would like to welcome everyone to stage. Finally, I would like to welcome His Excellency Mustafa Osman Turan, the Turkish Foreign Relations Advisor to the Mayor, Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality, Turkey, and a former ambassador to Bangladesh of the Turkey.
Is it working? Great. Yeah. Good afternoon. I know after the launch session, we need more energizer. We need to waking up, but we have esteemed, wonderful panel with us today. They'll definitely come up with great ideas, provocation, and we will try our best to engage as much as we can. Thank you for joining. Thank you, CGS, for hosting this amazing. Thank you, CGS, for hosting this amazing panel. Thank you for joining again. As our host highlighted the importance of today's session, the borders moving. Today's conversation, we really like to focus on with a simple question, a truth which is uncomfortable, that the maps are lying us. Not because the cartographers made a mistakes, but because the world they were describing no more exists. Rivers have shifted, coastlines have disappeared. An entire village in South Asia are on memories, and the people who live there are moving slowly but relentlessly. Yet the borders on our map remains frozen in time, protected by politics, defended by bureaucracy, and surrounded by fear. So the first provocation to this panel is this: what happens when human movements accelerate faster than political imagination? I repeat, what happens when the human movements faster than the political imagination? Because climate change, conflicts, and hunger are not sudden explosion. They are slow, grinding forces, quietly pushing families to walk further, cross borders, and rebuild their sense of home. And here is the paradox. So migration today is both inevitable and increasingly criminalized. Compassion remains stuck behind paperwork. Empathy collapses under the weight of administrative forms. And government debate sovereignty, while families debate survival. So I want to invite all of us to shift the frame. And the question is no longer who belongs where. The real question is How do we change to define belonging in a world where borders can no longer protect us from global crisis to conflict, climate, and the political chaos? Because climate change does not need a passport, right? Rising sea doesn't stop at the immigration checkpoints. And the hunger does not respect so-called national sovereignty. We are entering an age of moving borders, not because nothing will disappear, but because the foundation once defined belonging, geography, territory, ancestry are eroding. So let me leave the panel with the guiding question to shape our discussion today, and also to all of us in this room. The first guiding question, perhaps, if the climate change or conflict-like forces millions to move, what happens to belonging do we need beyond citizenship and passports? How can compassion move faster than bureaucracy? Most importantly, when protecting border comes at the cost of people, what does leadership looks like? These are not abstract questions, my friend. These are lived realities in our region, from the disappearing river banks of Nepal and Bangladesh, to the sinking homeland of Pacific, to the political movement across Myanmar and Afghanistan. In a world where a map no longer tells the full story, humanity, not geography, must decide who we are. With that, it is my honor to invite all the esteemed panelists today to share their experience around this topic. To begin with, I will take the pleasure of inviting James, as you have experience over your journey of life, moving from many countries to continent, coming from your ancestral roots, like grandfathers, to where you live today in Japan with your children. I would like you to kick off your ideas and experience in relation to what you think mobility means to you.
Well, thank you, Narayan, for a beautiful introduction. Can everybody hear me? Raise your hand. Because this is a story. It's a very important story. In fact, it is the story of human species, of our civilizations. People have been moving since the very first evolution of human beings. And they move to better resources for a more comfortable life, a chance to feed their families primarily. It has driven my family out of Greece, Ireland, and Scotland to the United States, which is the biggest destination in modern times for refugees and immigrants. So I have a story to tell that is based on a new premise, or a substantial premise, called compassion, which is in the title. In the United States now, there is a debate, quite a battle of ideas about immigrants and if they belong in the United States, how did they get there, what are the consequences to the societies that they're integrating in. So we are becoming experts on the migration. My grandfather left a very poor family in Greece when he was 14 years old and managed to get enough money for a boat to New York City, where there's a big statue made in France that said, "Bring us your huddled masses." We are an open land for immigrants. And in those days, that was true. There were several million people in the United States, which is now 320 million. But at the time, there were a lot of land available. The whole idea behind that, which is why I'm here now, is that we were welcomed to a land where we could grow the way we could find, any way we could find. We don't feel that today. And that's an issue not only in the United States, but in many countries. Today I was talking to people from Sweden, from South Africa, from Eastern Europe. They're being besieged by people escaping war, famine in other countries. And I think the key is not how to be angry about this, how they're going to impact our cities, but how can we make this a better life? And I'll start with that, and then we'll go around and field some ideas. But compassion is where I want to start.
Thank you. Thank you for being so brief. I forgot to mention the time, but you were exactly on time. Amazing. Awesome. So let me move on to Professor Karori, as he comes with his amazing experience being an academic, but at the same time, looking at how the South Asia in a region, but broadly the global perspectives through his academic works, teaching, practicing, and also seeing being a witness of many socio-political academic dialogue in his journey. How do you see when it comes about mobility, the migration, the borders, the demarcations? There were defined once, and today's the way that people move is maybe due to choice or by force. So I will give you. I will maybe want to hear your perspectives, maybe within like 3 to 4 minutes.
Me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Narayan. As and when my research scholars come, I tell them first sentence, precision is an art of scholarship. So Narayan, I try to be precise as much as possible. And the second thing I will do is I will provoke our audience to fire some bullets of ideas and words on me. So we are living in an era in which sense of belongings is greater than the sense of belonging. And under such an era, the problem of border and migration, we should understand. When we talk of borders, there are 3 situations which we are normally using interchangeable: borders, boundaries, and frontiers. And they are not coinciding in most of the societies. Similarly, we are using some concepts like nation, state, and country as interchangeable. Again, they are not coinciding. But what our system and the governments are doing to make them coincide through policies, through strategies, through laws, and sometimes through coercive measures. And that creates the problem, that creates the conflict, and sometimes it creates the violent conflicts in some of the societies if we are using coercive measures. So, in that respect, when the migration takes place, if you see the migration, in the modern time, there had been 2 waves of migration. First was the 19th century migration, in which the people from the colonies, by and large, migrated to the colonizer country. And even colonizer country facilitated to migrate people from their colonies to the colonizer country. But over a period of time, it has created some kind of social and economic imbalances in the colonizer countries. At the same time, it has facilitated the national freedom struggle in the colonies. So it has become a serious problem both in colonizer country and the colonial country. So over a period of time, most of the colonies got independence. And when these colonies got independence, the historians have conceptualized and theorized this kind of process as colonial overreach. And this colonial overreach is the kind of demise of colonialism. Then most of the countries reverted from the process of globalization, and they become somewhat protectionist. But the 20th century globalization is more serious, and that was heralded by the United States and other developed countries, of course, in their own interest. And this second wave of globalization was more serious. It has facilitated the migration, not only migration, but movement of goods, services, and people in different parts of the world. If we see the migration since 1990, during last 35 years, it has almost doubled. So now that situation, it has again created, this globalization has created problem in the developed countries which were leading the globalization process. So they are trying to be protectionist. Whereas the developing countries like China and India, they are advocating for the globalization. So under such a situation, should be conceptualized like the historians conceptualized the first stage of globalization, first phase of globalization as colonial overreach. I think we are at the stage of American hegemonic overreach. So American hegemony is disappearing. Under such a situation, how we can have deal with the situation of migration, not only migration, but the movement of people, movement of goods, movement of services, that is necessary for the global south, for the developing countries, for their progress, for their development. So the developing countries, global south is coming forward to advocate the globalization and greater migration, greater mobility. And now the developed countries, including United States, they are becoming protectionist, and it is being reflected in most of the multilateral organizations like G20, what's going on, and how the developed countries are against the BRICS and SCO. So they are trying to contain the migration process. And when US put some restrictions on a B1 visa, the countries like China came forward to give new kind of visa, K visa, to invite the talent from other countries, particularly those who are aspiring to go to developed countries like United States. They are now may go to China or Australia or Germany. These countries are opening their doors. So the mobility and migration will continue. And it is in the interest of humanity. It is in the interest of common prosperity of all the people. But the problem with this migration and the problem with migration and borders is that the borders, the different states are fighting a sort of cartographic conflict, cartographic battle. And that is the different kind of battle. How to deal with these kind of borders problem, that is the serious question we should deal with. Thank you, Narayan.
Awesome. Thank you, Professor. I know you have a lot of perspectives which we can discuss. But the audience, please feel free to make a notes. I'm sure you'll have a lot of good questions. I will come back to Jureda, from where Professor Karori stopped. Maybe that's a perfect segue when we think about giving that belongingness, the respect and the dignity of the people moving beyond borders. Right. And you were working as a minister and a very profound politician. Jump in with your experience and the ideas.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much, Narayan. And my dear colleagues. So from my experience during the post-COVID, once opens the border, because I was the Minister of Plantation Industries and Commodities, where palm oil is under my care and is our #1 export commodity. So we are very much in need of migrant workers, very much in need. So after the border opened during our post-COVID, I took a trip to Bangladesh and to understand the situation of migration of Bangladesh workers to Malaysia. So to date, we have almost more than 2 million Bangladeshi workers in Malaysia. So much so that those enterprising Bangladeshi, they open up businesses, they cater for the 2 million market, they become richer than any normal Malaysians actually. Okay, anyway, so what happened was, I begin to understand the recruitment process that is being done here in Bangladesh. So while I need the plantation workers for the palm oil because of the post-COVID, during COVID they are not allowed to work, and there are a lot of palm oils that is left, not being attended and rotten and the kind of thing, and that's a source of income for the country. So what I understand was, the Bangladeshi workers that came to Malaysia, they have to go through quite a number of processes and steps, and most of them coming from the rural areas. They are very naive, they are not educated, and they're also being abused by the recruitment agents, okay? So many levels, from the village head to the district head, whatever, and they were asking them for money. And they had to spend so much money, as much as 30,000 ringgit Malaysian, to pay to come to work to Malaysia. And some of them sell their houses and whatever, but also I'm also concerned about them when they come over to Malaysia. So because of their naive nature, so they are very vulnerable actually. Yeah. So, but sometimes they also be abused in Malaysia, and sometimes of the recruitment on that side also are not ready with jobs to give them, and these people were left desperate. Yeah. So when we realized that there's a need for foreign workers for my plantation industries, so therefore we developed an Act 446, because before this, there's no proper housing guidelines, proper amenities guidelines to their living conditions. So with the 446 Act, which we implement during my time, so the procedure is such that it must be given a certain size of room size with proper amenities, toilets, and that kind of thing. And even I'm concerned about their social life. So because every weekends I said employers should take them out to the city so that they can be mingling with the locals. And but alhamdulillah, any Bangladeshi that come to Malaysia, they feel at home because they see almost Malaysians also are like Bangladeshi, and with the food and the lifestyle is all the same. But I'm also worried because they are sometimes being abused by the employers, And I think recently there's about 700 to 800 workers being sent back to Bangladesh with no job and with no pay at all, you see. So these are the things that we have to take care, and we have to take care of these people the way how we take care of our own citizens. So therefore, giving them a proper living condition, a proper living lifestyle, so they have life in our country, is because we are concerned about their welfare, we are concerned about their livelihood and how they move around in Malaysia. So therefore, we come up with this act. So as a minister housing minister in Malaysia, I was concerned by my own citizens who stayed in those small flats, just like the pigeonhole, which I come up with the policy also. They shouldn't build any house smaller than 100 square feet with amenities and so on and so forth. So this is the caring that we show for our fellow migrant workers that come, and they are part of nation building actually. So without them coming to Malaysia, so the plantations and the construction sector and all will not be moving, especially during COVID and post-COVID. And that was really a very devastating period for us, where we are battling with COVID. At the same time, we are trying to battle to bring the migrant workers over to Malaysia. So basically, that's what has happened, especially the migrant workers from Bangladesh. This is the bulk of them in Malaysia. Of course, we have some Indonesians. Earlier, we have Vietnamese, we have Rohingyas. We have a lot of international community in Malaysia. We have Koreans who wants to have Korean street, Korean village, and the Bangladeshi also wish to have Bangladeshi village in Malaysia as well. So they just feel so at home. So they also wanted to have the kind of security or feeling safe in the country.
Thank you. And I am coming from Nepal, and there's a lot of Nepalese who works in Malaysia.
Also, yeah.
I'm sure they're feeling better They're feeling more connected with the Malaysians and the global populations. Thank you
That's
for
right.
doing that work, and kudos to you.
Thank you.
Before I jump into Mustafa, I would like to go to Tasif. As a young, very young, dynamic political leader, he was also serving as a mayor in Kashmir, Barmulla. So, what's your experience like, and what would you like to tell to the audience today? The time is yours. If you could wrap up within 4 minutes, that would be amazing.
Thank you, Narayan. Assalamu alaikum, namaskar, and a
Tasif?
very good
Yeah.
afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
It's fine now? So I want to begin my remarks with a poignant couplet from Kashmiri literate, written by the Shair-e Kashmir, the poet of Kashmir, Ghulam Ahmad Mahjoor Sahib. A line often invoked in conversations about humanity because it captures the very soul of compassion. Shakl chus insan magar, insaniyat nish bekhabar. In appearance, I am a human, but I am unaware of humanity. This verse reminds us that the true measure of humanity is not in how we present ourselves, but in how sincerely we practice compassion in our everyday lives. As some of you in the audience know, I am a practicing politician too, and I have had the honor of serving as the mayor of Baramulla, Varmul as we fondly call it, one of the historic towns of Jammu and Kashmir. In that role, I have witnessed up close the struggles of those who live on the margins, people with the limited awareness, scarce economic means, and almost no social capital to fall back on. I have seen their challenge, their suffering, and the quiet resilience. And I have also seen how, through dedicated effort, my team and I were able to bring relief, support, and moments of healing to many who had nowhere else to turn. We may not have had abundant resources to offer, but we did what mattered most. We listened. We stood with people in their moments of despair, opened our hearts and minds, and kept our doors open for everyone who needed to talk in and seek answers, support, or even simple reassurance. We could not solve every problem, and we did not always succeed in finding immediate solutions. But what we offered, a compassionate ear, an honest presence, and genuine concern, often brought healing is ways that policies and programs alone cannot. Baramulla may seem like a small dot on the global map. So why evoke by town at an international forum of this scale? Because as one of my closest friends often reminds me, we cannot solve big problems unless we first understand them. We cannot solve big problems unless the first understand them through the smaller ones. The world today is confronted with crises that test the very ideals of empathy, justice, and dignity. Many of us who still believe in these ideals find ourselves asking, what comes next? How do we heal a world so deeply fractured? The first step is honesty. If people are migrating in unprecedented numbers, we must ask why. If conflict forces them to leave their homes, we must confront the uncomfortable truth of who fuels these conflicts and who benefits from the chaos. If lack of opportunity drives them out, we must question what we collectively have failed to provide in their native lands. Addressing the root cause is not just an ethical duty, it's our shared responsibility as a human beings. Because if we choose instead to shut our borders, deploy brute force, or humiliate those seek refuge, we only deepen the crisis. We cannot defeat human dignity by hardening our hearts or narrowing our worldview. People will continue to seek safety, opportunity, and hope. Because that's what the human spirit is here to do. And so, the real choice before us is simple. Either we confront the cause of suffering with compassion and courage, or we continue living in a cycle of fear, force, and failure. Only one of these paths leads the future worthy of humanity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will have a follow-up question, but maybe later. Mustafa, it was great pleasure meeting you, and we had a conversation just before this. As an ambassador, diplomat, you also serve in Bangladesh. What a pleasure to have you here with your long experience, seeing how the mobility, the cross borders works through your diplomatic, as well as now what you are doing, working at the mayor's office, supporting administration, as well as maybe seeing seeing what is happening politically. And also, you shared me that how you work while you were in Ankara, supporting UNDP on promoting the refugees or migrants people's livelihoods, dignity, respects. But at the same time, you also mentioned me about how Turkey government is seeing this migration as an asset, not as a risk or not as a threat, but also an asset from the point of humanitarian. And I remember what you said about digital citizenship, right? We're very curious to hear about your journey of witnessing the mobility, migration beyond borders, and your impact in relation to, a digital identity, right? If you want to call that way. So, floor is yours. Again, up to 4 minutes, and we will go for the audience.
Thank you. So it's a pleasure to be back to Dhaka. I was a Turkish ambassador here for 3 years. I had first-hand experience also how Bangladesh has been dealing with its own refugee and migration-related issues when it comes to Rohingya refugees in Cox's Bazar. I was there myself many times, witnessing the policies and their effects. I also served in Kosovo in the Balkans, where migration and refugees were also an important issue. So I have some first-hand experience. Before I talk about this belonging and the legal status of migrants and refugees, I would like to actually to make us understand the sort of differences in approaching this really complex issue. I'd like to categorize approaches to migration in 2 different categories. So one aspect of one approach to migration is actually guided by policies of fear and security. In other words, migration framed as a threat, and containment, deterrence, and border militarization. And these policies include hard borders, detentions and pushbacks, reduced asylum rights, criminalization of irregular entry, political use of migration to mobilize fear, which we see in many parts of the world today. And the other approach is migration policies based on justice and prosperity. In other words, migration framed as human need, both from the perspective of the migrants, but also from the perspective of the receiving societies. So this approach emphasized legal pathways, integration and social inclusion, refugee labor mobility, humanitarian protection, and municipal leadership. Because after all, I also work for Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality, and Istanbul is hosting more than 2 million refugees. And I know firsthand that mayors and local leaders are the first responders to the needs of the migrants. So based on these two approaches to migration, of course, there is a hybrid group or a combination of the two policies, a mixed model, in other words, where the countries fall in between the two groups. And Turkey is in this category, actually, because we are hosting large-scale refugees, a large number of refugees. We have strong municipal inclusion, but at the same time, we also have securitization of migration in national politics. So I just want to, in terms of the key message, I would like to talk about this in a way as a moral and political issue rather than a geographic issue. So I would say policies based on fear would protect borders before people, and policies of justice and prosperity would protect people to stabilize societies. So in my experience in Turkey, when I was in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we developed an accelerator to address some of the urgent needs of migrants and refugees in our country, because we need innovative solutions. And we discussed this matter with the migrants and refugees themselves. And the top priority they expressed was the need to be recognized in the societies where they are hosted. So to be recognized, they needed their legal status to be clear. And they are in a way lucky, because Turkey has a law that protects the rights of migrants and refugees. We have a special law, a temporary law, but it provides the right to work, the right to for the refugees to have access to education, their kids to go to school, their access to health services. So that this in a way addresses their need to be recognized. But in many countries, this is not available. So we, in our program, the accelerated program, we talked about this with the entrepreneurs, and there was this idea of a digital identity that provided refugees an opportunity to be recognized. Because in most cases they cannot verify their identity or legal status, their education background, or their health records. So it's possible in today's world that if you have a digital identity based on blockchain, you can have tokens to verify various aspects of your identity that allows you to open bank accounts, make money transfers, apply for a job, or go to school, prove your educational background, and keep your health records. So in other words, it's a way to empower people, and this is of course a solution based on the approach of justice and prosperity. But at the same time, it provides the tool for the governments to manage migration in an effective way. Because one of the reasons why migration becomes a threat is because politicians sometimes manipulate the fear of the people based on some data that are not totally accurate. So if we have this system where we know exactly the sort of information about the people who are residing in our countries, we can start perceiving them as an asset, as an opportunity to really enrich our shared prosperity, rather than fear, a threat or a fear to be contained. So that's what I wanted to say at this moment in terms of two different approaches to migration.
Thank you. Maybe we will, if we have a time, we will go back to the migration. Of course, we thank you for sharing this. But audience, I would like to come back to you. Please raise your hand. Be sure that you be very specific. You can also add some opinion, but the time is limited. The time is energy, time is money, time is trust. So it's very valuable. Just to remind you what the panelists were highlighting, Tosif highlight about the change is not possible overnight, but if you try honestly, that's the first step. And Mustafa, as you mentioned, it's not always about geography, but also morality and the politics. And James, you highlighted how compassionate and how it is to be connected as a family, right? And getting that social ingredients of trust, cultural values. And the professor highlighted about, the globalization and the order, the 19th century globalization and today's globalization, how they are relating to each other. What is the difference? Whether is the challenges remains the same or the different? And Jureda beautifully mentioned about while she was actively working on this 446 acts, and her theory was, I also asked her before the panel, was it politically motivated or humanly motivated? And she said humanly motivated. So with that, overview, I would like to come to you, audience. Please feel free to jump in and go to the mic station, and be sure that you share your name and who you belong with. 1 minute, each participant. And if you have time, we will always come back to you. Please move to the microphone. Yes, gentleman here. It would be great if you all want to come to the microphone so that we save our time in advance.
Good evening. This is Mohammad Abdul Hanan, FCA. My question is, many people came from Myanmar, called Rohingya, to Bangladesh earlier years. How does Myanmar plan to work with regional partners and international organizations to address the humanities and security concerns that lead to the population moving into Bangladesh? Could you clarify Myanmar official position on the repatriation process of those who have migrated to Bangladesh in recent years? What are the main challenges preventing the return of people who cross into Bangladesh, and how does Myanmar intend to resolve them? Thank you.
Mohammad, would you like to indicate your question to one of the panelists, or you want?
No indications.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right, next.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. I am Enamul Hassan, a postgraduate student from Islamic University. My first question is, how do moral arguments shape public attitudes towards refugees and asylum seekers today? And my second question is, as the title says, migration, morality, and politics of compassion. Is compassion sustainable as a political principle in managing large-scale migration? And how does the state decide who gets the compassion or who gets the pass to enter a country and who does not? Thank you. Anybody can answer the questions.
Thanks. Can I have another question?
Good evening. I am Maruf Billah Naim. I am second year economics student, department from Jahangirnagar University. So my question is for Mr. Mustafa. As you have experience in Bangladesh and you are a Turkish citizen yourself, so main reason I am directing this question to you is because you have managed the Syrian refugee crisis and Palestinian crisis as well as Nagorno-Karabakh. You have diplomatic muscle flexing all over the world, solving humanitarian issues. So my questions will be, Bangladesh, in Bangladesh Rohingya crisis, there is always lingering, and we as a state as a country, we are diplomatically unable to solve the problem because there is China, there is India, and there is US interest. So in this scenario, in this environment, we have seen Turkish diplomats moving and muscle flexing very intelligently and very smartly. So my question will be, how, as a state, we Bangladesh build our capacity in terms of military, economic, and diplomatic field so that we, as ourselves, as a nation, solve the problems that are lingering our borders. We see not only in the Chittagong hill tracks, there are Cox's Bazar issues, Chittagong hill track issues, and as you have been in Bangladesh, I am sure you know them very well. So any panelist can answer, but I am specially directing you to, so I hope you will answer them properly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You got an next.
Hello, this is Afsana Mimi, and I'm from Jahangirnagar University, specialized in international relations. My question is, we are currently living in a more globalized world, but in recent times, both in Europe and America, we are seeing anti-immigrant policies. How do I think these anti-immigrant policies will affect these countries that depend on so much on migrant workers? Thank you.
Thank you. I saw a hand raised from the gentleman with the hat. Would you like to ask a question? Okay, go ahead.
Greetings. My question is similar to
What's your name?
Myself, Ong Thwagyo Marmaong. I'm a student of law at University of Dhaka. Actually, my question is, apart from illegal migration, what are the factors that now most of the developed and Western countries are against on migration? For example, we have observed that recently the newly elected first Prime Minister of Japan, Sanai Takaichi, are against on migration, and we have also observed in America, present Trump administration are against on migration. My question is actually to James, sir. Thank you.
Awesome. I saw, okay, please, go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Tanvir Siddiqui. I work for Changemakers, a civic education organization. I do fully agree with Mr. Mustafa, what you said. And my question is to anybody you can reply. If Mr. Mustafa reply, it's fine for me. The migration in recent phenomenon of migration, I work with this subject for more than 2 decades. And in recent phenomenon is politicizing the migration issue. Particularly if you see the US recent laws, the UK recent laws, and the European Union and others. And in very particular, the Chega in Portugal, what they are doing, what they are, trying to grab the situation, utilizing the migration issues and others. So the politicizing the migration and getting benefit out of this, what is your observation? Thank you.
Thank you. Sure, sir.
Hello, I'm Anika Tassina. I'm an LLM student at the University of Dhaka. So my question is to Mr. Raina particularly. So we have seen that politicians often frame the issue of migration as security or development issues. But how do you frame it as a political issue? As we have seen that in local communities, people's identity or their representation is being eroded through migration. So does your political organization or leadership take any steps to ensure that representation is not eroded? Thank you.
How about we agree on this? I know I have seen some hand raising, but let's pause a moment because there's a lot of questions and I want to give a justice to my panelists so that they can respond. Since Mustafa, you were indicated at least with 2 persons, why don't you start?
Okay, so I start with the question related to politicization of migration. I think I need to, if I understood well, I need to reframe the question because I think migration issues are political. There is no escape from it. But as I said during my intervention earlier, there's nothing wrong with politicization. But what really matters is how you frame migration in political discourse. Yeah. So I believe framing migration and migrants as individuals as a threat to the security of a given state, that is problematic, I believe. Because, I mean, after all, many of these refugees or migrants, they escape from war or, climate change-related catastrophes or hunger in certain cases in Africa. So they are in a desperate situation, and it's a human condition to seek refuge when you're faced with a risk to your life. And it can happen to any one of us in this gathering. One day you are a normal citizen, the next day you face with an earthquake, with a natural catastrophe, and you find yourself seeking refuge in another country. So I think we need to develop some level of empathy towards this phenomenon and the people who are affected by it. That's why I think for populist politicians, it's an easy gain to frame migrants as a threat because they can blame others for the problems they cannot solve through different means, through different solutions. So I think that when you talk about politicization of migration, that is the problem, I believe, personally. Because that kind of discourse also underestimates or ignores the contributions made by the migrants. Most of them work in jobs that the local people do not want to work. So they do make a contribution, and in politics, this aspect is usually not emphasized. So regarding the second question, how Turkey sort of developed its policies and especially in terms of diplomacy, how do we sort of deal with the question of migration in a way to, diminish the negative effects in our country. So, one of the problems related to migration internationally is that, when a large number of migrants or refugees are moving into a certain country, like Bangladesh is one of them, the burden sharing by other countries is always a problem. Like, in the beginning, people send humanitarian aid, they do some contributions, other countries, but in time, and in most cases, refugees stay in a country for decades. Like, they don't go away easily. So as time goes by, that burden sharing diminishes, and the hosting countries are left with their own devices to deal with the needs of the migrants and refugees. So I think that is a serious problem, and in Turkey we do bring this issue up in many international platforms. We emphasize the rights of migrants, we emphasize burden sharing, we emphasize the fact that excluding migrants or discriminating migrants becomes a real threat. Therefore, I think it's a wiser policy to really try to find a way to integrate the migrants and address their basic needs so that they do not get antagonized. It's in those circumstances they would potentially, be a source of problems rather than solutions. So that's what my country does in general, and it adopted an open door policy towards Syrian migrants. But later on, as I said, we developed policies and practices in time to deal with this issue in an efficient and effective way, so that it doesn't become a problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There's one gentleman who asked about the question about why the developed country are so hesitant on responding migrants. So James, would you like to jump in and share your experience?
Yeah, I think the difference that we have experienced in the United States is, can you hear me? The first, we are an immigrant nation, so immigration is the standard way of getting into the United States. And I'm only the second-born American in our family, second generation. My father is a first generation born in the United States. We're all very close to our home countries. And the question for us is not integration, as Mustafa said. For us, it's assimilation. The big difference is you can bring in new settlers into your communities, but unless they assimilate and become one of you, you're going to have a long-term problem. So the problems that we have in immigration in the United States are those who are integrating but not assimilating. Most people who do arrive at the United States are welcomed, and within a very short time, they are very proud to say, I am an American. That's really the secret to this issue. If the Ropongis in Myanmar, 1 million of them that come to Bangladesh, the reaction in the United States would be to say, welcome to become a Bangladeshi. There is a very real assimilation issue. You asked a question about Japan and how it's resisting immigration. And that has been the case since its opening in the 18th century. But the population is declining so fast in Japan, they're now encouraging immigration for the first time. And they're doing it in typical Japanese fashion, very organized, very polite, very compassionate. And so there are some outstanding models of immigration in this world. I think we should all look together for I don't know how you will solve the Roppongi problem here, but it better start with a real compassion, otherwise it will just lead to conflict. That's my say.
Sure, thank you. Professor Karori, you previously also touched upon a little bit about there are always a pushing and pulling factors when it talks about people moving. And of course the morality, the compassion, the values, and one of the gentlemen also tried to touch upon this matter. So would you like to share your thoughts, but also responding around the morality and the compassions?
Yeah, I would like to share a couple of sentences. I share the sentiments of my friend from Bangladesh who asked about the repatriation of refugees from Myanmar. And in that respect, I think global community is highly insensitized. What's their level of morality and compassion is there to improve the living, either improve the living conditions of the refugees in Cox's Bazar area and that part of Bangladesh, or their repatriation. So highly inadequate response is there. The second thing which I would like to share is what is the attitude of the host country. Here I think Bangladesh has a positive attitude. And what is the attitude of the origin country? In Myanmar, situation is altogether different. It is an authoritarian regime. So how global community can convince Myanmar for repatriation, that is the challenging question, because two different attitudes are there. The Bangladesh, the host country, and the Myanmar as an origin country, and that difference remains in other parts as well, where migration is taking place, wherever it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There's a question about politics, and then I'll come to you. Jureda, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, I was thinking that there was a question on USA anti-migrant act, right? I mean, they are pushing for that, but I think it will not affect Bangladesh in that sense because it is their policy for their country where they are stopping Mexicans and from coming into US. But I think it will not affect a country like Bangladesh. But for Malaysia, we do not ratify the Refugees Act, So, but we allow Myanmar to come in to the country, but of course there's limitations. They are not allowed to work. They are not allowed to go to work, but they are quite quite freely staying in Malaysia. They have their own community and that kind of thing. But probably Malaysia is still underpopulated, so we can still take in these refugees, you see, even though we don't ratify the law, the act, yeah. But probably Bangladesh is quite overpopulated in that sense. We were 180 million people and it's still growing. So I think is a country policy has to look into that. Because I think like Syrian refugee in Germany, for instance, they have these orientation programs and that kind of thing so that it will not influence the social fiber of the country and do not bring down the quality of life of the country so that they know the do's and don'ts of the country. So I think it's up to the host country as what they want to do, and they can impose on the policy. But for Myanmar refugees, we have the global understanding where countries like Malaysia is a Muslim country, Indonesia is a Muslim country, so they are given space in these countries actually.
Yeah, thank you. But I would also like to go to Toshi before I move to. I'm looking at you, but just a minute. Toshi, as a young politician, you always aspired for change and took that courage and that brevity, that honesty to be in the positions and the power. What do you think when it comes about, for example, India as the largest democracy in the world should engage young people in shaping the future of the future of the nation?
Can you repeat again that?
Yeah. So the question around how young people can shape the decisions when it comes about India engaging their populations in this.
We are a young nation, and the youth have a huge responsibility to shape our country's future. That's why you are seeing so many young men and women jumping into politics as a career across India, and honestly, they are doing exceptionally well. Take, for example, Abhishek Banerjee in West Bengal, Aditya Thackeray in Maharashtra, Raghav Chadha in Delhi, and Chirag Paswan in Bihar. These are some of the young leaders I genuinely see as a hope on the horizon. The same thing is happening in Jammu and Kashmir. Political parties are actively backing young leaders to step up and represent the people. We now have many elected MLAs under 30 and under 40 in our assembly, including several impressive women. Even at the grassroots level in municipalities and panchayat, countless young people have contested elections, won and delivered extraordinary results. It's inspiring to watch the new generation taking charge. And one is in front of.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great. So with the interest of the time, I will let you ask your question, but with the question, if you could also propose some solution. And after this, I will invite another maximum 3 people. If you come up with the solution, right? Solution of the problems that we discussed, the issue that raised. Sir, please go ahead. Microphone, please.
Thank you very much. I would like to draw our neighboring country, Indian veteran, Professor Karori. Recently, we observed from the Indian government, they lead some pushing to Bangladesh, some people who are the really citizen of India. But unfortunately, Indian government with the compassion, the opposite of political compassion, they actually try to push people to Bangladesh. What is your opinion about such kind of pushing that are the out of international law, humanitarian, out of violation of humanitarian approach, and also the violation of neighboring friendship? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone would like to propose some solutions? Okay, Professor Karori.
Hello. I don't think the government of India is pushing Bangladeshis out of India. It's an internal matter to revise the voting list, that the SIR. That is something different. It's not the pushing people out of India. So that is the different exercise, SIR, just to maintain the citizenship register. That exercise is taking place. And that is the internal matter of India. In a democratic system, those who are not citizen of India, they should not have voting right. For that, this exercise is taking place. But sometimes media is reporting something out of the context. So the government's policy and administrative decision is different from what the media is sensationalizing sometimes. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we are about to close our session, but I would allow our panelists, if you have an idea, please propose one solution that you think is most practical and the need of the hours. I will start with Jureda.
Yeah, I think in relations to, because I don't have much of a problem with this, and because we are very much involved with migrant workers in Malaysia. So other than that, I think we are very dependable on the migrant workers. So therefore, we have to take care of their welfare properly, so in order for them to stay on and to do the job that the Malaysians don't want to do the job, you see. But they were very handy also in the country, so odd jobs and whatever, and they're quite well trained in terms of technical jobs and so on and so forth. So I think for future, Bangladesh will benefit when you have your new government. You're going to have transform your country. You will need these semi-skilled workers that has been trained in Malaysia to come back to your country and serve you. So we have done the job for you to train them, and please bring them back as talent corps to help to progress in your development later. Thank you.
Awesome. Can I move it to the Karori, sir?
About which?
A solution?
Solution.
Which one? What's the question?
If you could share one solution of the problem.
Solution of which
problem? What's your solutions look like?
Solution to the migration.
How you solution to the migration issue?
Of the migrant workers.
Myanmar migrants.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever.
Migration.
You see, the global community should come forward for resolving the issues of at least refugees. Migrant issue is different from the refugee issues. And in case of Myanmar migrants as refugees in Bangladesh, I think Bangladesh is taking it as a humanitarian issue, not as a burden. Bangladesh on its own is doing marvelous job. But global community, even government of Bangladesh approached the global community, including United Nations, but they are not having proper response, adequate response. That is the challenging question. As regards the legal migration, the developed countries, they are considering that migrants are creating social imbalance in their societies. So they are becoming protectionist, and the US attitude is somewhat different. No less than the Vice President of United States told the migrants particularly the labor migration in United States, American companies should not invite the labor. If they invite the labor to United States, then it will hurt the innovation and invention. So American companies refrain from taking labor force from different parts of the world. So this is the attitude of the developed countries. How it is appropriate, because the technological advancement, the technological innovation and invention is not in the end itself. There must be some humanitarian consideration. Technology is an instrument, but labor replacing technology, it's creating imbalance in the developed countries as well as in the developing countries. That is the big challenge. How to deal with it, that is, we shall have to think over it.
Thank you. James?
I think he's exactly right. It's an attitude for the developed countries because they have their basic needs satisfied. So they have the luxury of making choices about people and about inviting others to join in. And that's something for all of us to aspire to. And I'll just make one other final comment. On the news, you can see where the police in the United States are grabbing immigrants and they're arresting them and they're deporting them. That is an aberration. There are cases of this going on, and we, American people, are very upset at this. And we will probably change our government as a result. And that's the other option in a democracy. If you don't like what's going on, you can elect somebody else. That's what we're about to do.
Thank you so much, Mustafa.
The most intolerant people towards refugees and migrants are the ones who have never encountered any migrant or refugee. So my solution is for local governments or national governments to create programs and projects in which local communities meet with the migrants and refugees. And they discuss, they do projects together. Maybe, it can be even a sports program. It can be a cultural program. Just to get to know each other so that they feel their shared humanity, right? When I visited refugee camps in Cox's Bazar, my understanding of the challenges of these people became much more compassionate. So I would recommend both decision makers and citizens to get to know each other.
Thank you so much. Tashif, would you like to propose a solution?
So I believe it's the responsibility of major powers and global leaders to approach migration through dialogue and cooperation. Only sustained constructive engagement can lead to a long-term solution.
Awesome. I think you conclude the session. We need a constructive engagement. I would like to ask our host if we have a time. Otherwise, I have seen wrap up, right? Okay. Unfortunately, I invited a few of you if you have any proposed solution, but don't worry. Please post your solution on Bay of Bengal Conversation social media and your email, and later we can have a conversation over tea, coffee. But thank you for being so generous, audience, listening, engaging, asking questions. And thank you, amazing panelists. I think they deserve a round of applause. Thank you, guys. Everybody deserves it. Thank you so much.